Hey guys, Vahlkx here, and today I'm going to go over my ultimate Gley build. So this one is mainly, an infinite ammo build that uses Massacre. If you wanted to, I also have a gun, weapon version that you can be using as well. And this also covers the mobbing build for this, but I'm going to get right into that and kind of just go over it. So for my first build here, we're going to be going over the farming build, and for this one, we'll be using massive simplification. Honestly, this one is probably Gley's best Transcendent mod because it takes off the power of life cost on the second ability. So in something like farming, you can just spam this out and just kill a bunch of enemies. And what's nice about this later on, and when I go over the bossing build, it gives you power of life. So with that one, you can just go ahead and use Massacre right away. Now I'm going to start off with the survivability stuff I have going on here. So for health, I have Stim Accelerant, and I have increased HP. Gley doesn't have any, shields, so you really want to just stack HP and defense on her. Following that, I am using just a regular Iron Will because this is all I can really fit in the build right now until, they allow us to recatalyze stuff later on in Season 1. But yeah, that is what I've got here on those slots. We're going to be looking to kind of have the most cooldown possible. So I've got Nimble Fingers going there, as well as MP Conversion. On top of that, I use Multi-Talented to just, boost up the skill cooldown just a bit right there. And that pretty much allows us to just spam the second ability back to back, no problem. And because this is a farming build, we're going to be trying to get the most range possible. So we've got skill expansion going there and maximize range. And having this will bring up the ability here to 34.4 meters. If you had a, range mod on your reactor, it'd just bump it up to 36, but you don't really need that little bit of extra right there. And finally, for the last two slots, which are the damage mods, are going to be focus on non-attribute. So this gives the non-attribute skill power, which is really good. And then it gives a little bit of cooldown, so that also helps with, spamming abilities. And then on top of that, we've got skill simplification, which again, just gives more power modifier, just to do more damage in general. Next up is my bossing build, and once again, this one is going to be using massive simplification. It's when you use the second ability, it will give you 3 power of life, which is just enough to actually use Massacre. And then at that point, you just want to bring yourself to half health to really get the most benefit out of things like Walk a Tightrope and the Annihilation set that I'll kind of go over later on. So I'm going to start off with the survivability stuff. And right here, we're going to be having Battle of Stamina. So this will give us HP. And then also increases duration, which is something we're going to be needing in this, which I'll talk about later on. Next up is going to be the regular blue HP mod, just once again increase that as much as possible. And on top of that, I'll be using Spear and Shield just to give me a little bit more defense and also give me skill power for my Massacre. Now, as for, cooldown and trying to keep the uptime on our third ability for infinite ammo, we're going to be using Nimble Fingers here and MP Conversion to just bring that down as much as possible. Now for my build, what I do with this is I decided to stack up duration as much as possible. So I have skill duration there with skill extension and maximize duration. What you might see in other Gley builds though, you might see them use outstanding investment for the duration there instead. But in my head, I decided to do maximize duration because if you can boost that up, as much as possible, then you'll be able to just shoot for longer and not have to spam the ability as much. So for example, I have nearly 10 seconds right there. Other builds will have maybe 8 seconds, and that 1 second will make a difference of, just how much uptime you have and how much you're really spamming the skill there. And if you're just shooting for longer and not having to apply it as often, then you're just going to be doing more damage over time and overall in the run. Now, as for my 2 damage mods, I'll be using Focus on Non-Attribute for the skill power, and again, the cooldown to just help with the uptime on that third ability. And then also using skill simplification on this one for just that extra skill power for Massacre. But honestly, this slot is a flex slot, and I'll kind of talk about that soon. For my final mod, which is my yellow mod, we'll be using Walk a Tightrope. So this one is just really good for just increasing the damage overall as Gley, because when you're using her skills, you're going to be using health. So if you can just get to 50% or lower, that's a big damage boost right there. Now, earlier, I did say that this slot right here is kind of a flex slot, and it's mainly based off your reactor. So right now, I do have a skill cooldown one, which does give me the, constant uptime right there. You can have the difference of the cooldown and duration within 0.4 seconds, and you'll still be able to have the uptime there. So that fits perfectly. So the problem with having simplification there is that you need a gold cooldown reactor, and if you don't have it, you can't use it. The only exception is if you have a cooldown and duration up, and I'm pretty sure it can be any rarity. As long as you have the two, it'll work. So to kind of, fix it up, if you don't have the cooldown and duration, whatever, with these two right here, what you can do is, let's say you have just a duration up one, you can go ahead and use duration up. And what that will do is, you'll see it won't be within that 0.4 seconds of the cooldown and duration, but then on this slot, instead of simplification, we go ahead and put that to like focus on dimension. I mean, it's probably going to be better because Gley is more dimension focused. So we'll put that on, and would you look at that? Cooldown and duration are now within that 0.4 seconds, so having this will work. One more thing I want to talk about with this build is that you could do more damage with it if you wanted to, but you do lose out on survivability. So I would say only do this with like a good pre-made that you're kind of, teaming up with. So for this one, what you're going to be doing is instead of increased HP here, swap that out with shot focus, and you could keep walk a tightrope, or you can go ahead and switch that one to dangerous ambush just to give more skill power. And finally, for the last build here, which is mainly the gun focused build, we'll be using Predator Instinct. And so how this works is that when you're in the frenzy state and you're shooting over time, which is 2 seconds there, we're going to be getting a 21% firearm increase, which is good for just doing more damage. I'm mainly going to be going over this build briefly because it's pretty similar to the bossing one. So we've got the cooldown right here, as well as the durations going, for that constant uptime on the third ability right there. For our defense slot, we'll be using shield conversion to just have the most amount of defense possible, and losing out on shield does not matter for Gley because she doesn't have any. On this slot right here, we're just going to continue using focus on non-attribute. The skill power doesn't really do anything for this build, it's mainly just for that extra cooldown right there. And for the second C slot, we'll be using shot focus for extra firearm attack, and then on the X slot here for my yellow mod, we're going to continue using walk a tightrope because as Gley, your abilities are going to take health, and if you can just have 50% or lower, you're going to have that extra attack, which is good. And for my last slot, I do have HP Collector. This pretty much just gives us a little bit more sustain. For this build specifically, there are some things you can change around, and it really depends on your reactor. For example, right now I have the gold cooldown going, and then it pretty much mimics my bossing build with like the cooldown and duration stuff. For this one, if you were to do battle as stamina, what I would say is switch out HP Collector for increased HP, just to have more survivability. However, if you did have, let's say, a cooldown and a duration up one, and you go ahead and apply that, what you can see is that I hit the 0.4 seconds within the cooldown and duration. So with that being the case, I don't really need battle as stamina, and so I could keep HP Collector here and just go ahead and put Stim Accelerant, and as you see here, still within the 0.4, and I just have more health. Now, off to my reactors, you kind of saw it earlier, but I have two going, one for the Thunder Cage and one for the, Python. And so for my Thunder Cage, I've got crit hit damage and skill cooldown. That's all you really need there, as well as, dimension damage and non-attribute. And then just going over my Python real quick, I've got the cooldown and duration up. What I would prefer here, though, is having that gold cooldown and maybe like Colossus attack, because my Python is solely built for just bossing. And, if I had a Colossus damage up, it would have been nice, but did not get that drop. So that is what I'm kind of using here. And for my components, it's pretty simple. I'm just running the Annihilation set. So the only stats you really need to worry about are the max HP right here and the defense on there. If you were to get like the HP modifiers on these slots here, it's a nice to have, but it's not needed at all. Because I did mention how I use a Python for just bossing, I'm going to quickly go over my Python build. And I just want to say this again. It's mainly only for bossing. I use it for nothing else, and I only use it on Gley. And I only use it as well if I have a character such as Enzo who can buff the party's crit rate, because this Python is built for crit and is built for weak point, which allows for the max damage if I have an Enzo. So I'm just gonna go ahead and show the mods there. Alright, so for my Python build, we're doing the pretty simple stuff. So we just got attack damage going right here. We've got weak point damage going right here. We have fire rate up, just to increase DPS. And then for this one, we're just building crit. So we've got crit rate and we've got the crit damage. And again, this is only good if you have Enzo. Now, what you could do is continue using the catalyst slots here if you want to. You do not need to follow this build at all. This is just what I do. But what you could do is switch the crit rates for fire stuff. So we got fire enhancement and fire priority. Easy fix right there to just get rid of the crit rate if you don't have an Enzo going in your party. And then for the very last slot for my yellow mod, I have the sharp precision shot here. I found this to work a lot better for just outputting more damage over time as Gley and using the Python. For most other weapons, you'll probably want to run mental focus instead of sharp precision. And you know, that's because Python has a very high fire rate, so you're kind of getting a lot of benefit just using this instead. So that just about does it here for my ultimate Gley build. Nothing too crazy. It's mainly, you know, infinite ammo. It's what you kind of want to build for as Gley. But yeah, this is just what I'm running. I hope this guide helped you guys out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.